Welcome to Greek Verse a Day. Today we're translating the second half of Revelation 2:2. You should be working from your reader's edition of the Greek New Testament, using the screen as a source of help. By way of a reminder, John is writing, he's being told what to write to the angel over the church in Ephesus. So we're going to have lots of second person singulars here because John is addressing the angel over the church in Ephesus, who really represents the congregation or congregations in the city of Ephesus as a whole. So we'll start with a slow reading, have a bit faster of a reading, and then we'll jump into our translation here. Kai epeirosos tous legantos he autus apostolus kai uk eisen kai hures autus pseudes. All right, a little bit faster this time. Kai epeirosos tous legantos he autus apostolus kai uk eisen kai hures autus pseudes. So here I encourage you to pause, take a look at your reader's edition and the helps as far as vocabulary and parsing that you get there, and see what you can make of the second half of Revelation 2:2 before I jump in. All right, so when I jump in, what we have right away is an indicative verb here. We have an aorist, active, indicative, and then our sos ending here lets us know that it is second person singular. And again, it's second person singular because the angel of the church in Ephesus is being addressed. This is from the verb peirazo, which means test or tempt. So, and you are, you test, so test is going to be better here. You test, and what is being tested is all of this. So this whole sort of phrase here is going to be the object of this indicative verb here. So what we have following it is tous legantos. This is a participle, let's go ahead and write it down. A present active participle, accusative, masculine, plural, which we get from tous. Remember, we always get our noun information about a participle. If there's an article there, the article is the best way to find that information. From lego, which means say. So those saying, in this case, we have an adjectival participle, and it's specifically a substantival adjectival participle. It's making an entity. It's making a substantive. So those saying, and then what follows here, what follows the participle is the object of the participle. Remember, a participle being part verb, part adjective, it's a verbal adjective, can take or does take both parts from a verb and parts from an adjective, and it can function sort of in both ways. And one of the ways it can function, one of the functions it takes from its verbal features is that it can have an object. And so that's what's going on here. Those saying, and then he autus is a reflexive pronoun in the accusative case. They're saying themselves apostles. So what we have here is called indirect discourse. John is reporting not what was directly said, but in an indirect manner. He's not giving the actual quotation, the direct quote of these people, but is indirectly alluding to what they say. And they say themselves to be apostles. We'd really like to have a to be verb in here or after this. And in this case, it would be in the infinitive because we have an indirect discourse. Let's write this down very briefly. An indirect discourse, you have, it'll often throw Greek into the accusative case with the infinitive. So remember, this is something you may not remember, actually. We'll talk more about this in the exegesis class, is that when you have indirect discourse and when you have an infinitive, the subject of the infinitive is in the accusative case. So whereas when we're in the indicative mood, we expect the nominative case to be the subject, and that's sort of the grammatical rule that I've sort of hammered into you in Greek 1. But when it comes to the infinitive, the subject of the infinitive is in the accusative case. And so that's what we have here. Because we're in indirect discourse, we have accusatives. And if we were to have a verb, which we would like to, this is, and you'll find actually in some manuscripts, you do get a verb here that sort of later scribes put in a verb because they really want John to use a verb here. And he probably should have. And the verb would be the to be verb enai in the infinitive. So saying themselves to be apostles. And then this little bit afterwards, and uk asin, and they are not. So here we have the indicative, the present indicative, third person plural of me, Amy, excuse me, and they are not apostles. And then the rest of the sentence, kai hures autus pseudes, is still sort of referring back to what's going on in this whole clause, which was the object of this verb right here. And hures, and you found, an aorist active indicative second person singular from heurisco, which means I find. So because we're second person singular, you found in the aorist. You found, and then a double, this is what's called a double accusative. Two accusatives right next to each other, which are both the object of the verb and go together. You found them liars in a very literal sense. Again, we can sort of put in the to be verb in there to smooth it out in English. You found them to be liars. So to put this all back together here, we have and you tested those saying themselves to be apostles, but they're not, or and they're not. And you found them to be liars.